Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream chat. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how Western society is being undermined and how our confidence in ourselves, our social cohesion, our social trust, all of the things that made the West, or many of the things that made the West rich, stable, free, are being taken away bit by bit, step by step. Now, the pace has accelerated quite a lot recently. I think the advent of Brexit and certainly the election of President Trump has scared them a bit. They now realise that no one actually supports the globalist project, and so they've picked up the pace and they're out to crush all dissent now has to be crushed. And we're seeing madness, absolute madness, where parents concerned about their children's education at the local school is a subject of FBI intimidation investigation. And you couldn't, George Orwell couldn't have conceived this. That's how over the top it is. But let's look at a number of other ways, and there are many ways they're doing it, that they're seeking to undermine white societies and Western white societies. So let's have a look at this. Just recently, I've been looking at the Senate confirmation hearings in the United States, and I'm staggered at how the globalist-controlled Democrats are putting up radical, rabid activists, people who hate America. They hate white people, they hate straight people, they hate Christians, they hate everything about the white society that has given them so much, by the way. But they have this rabid hatred. They want to tear it all down and take the view, the simplistic, childlike, idiotic view that anything that replaces white society must be better. Now, they're obviously not thinking very far ahead here, but anyway, let's put that to one side for a moment. But these are activists being put, people you wouldn't hire to sweep the floor, or you wouldn't hire to work in the takeout chicken shop, and they're being put up for very senior, very well-paid roles in the public service or the judiciary and elsewhere around governmental administration and policy formulation in the United States. This is not unique to the United States, by the way. Many other countries don't have confirmation hearings in the same way, so people can be very quietly put in place without you knowing, or without the local populace knowing. So at least the Senate confirmation hearings, as much as they degenerate into political theatre from time to time, and they do, at least they give you an option of the public, an option of seeing who's being nominated and what their background or credentials are, or rather lack of credentials. So, and I looked at some of Senator Josh Hawley's questioning of some of these candidates being put up by the globalist controlled Democrats, and it's almost beyond belief that they could put someone like that forward. I mean, you wouldn't dream of putting in that job if you were even remotely sensible about public service and trying to deliver better quality outcomes for the people. These are clearly people that are being sent in just to destroy white Western society, that they have no other purpose, which is, of course, the new globalist growth industry. That's the big growth industry for the globalists, finding the people they can insert into the public service, into government, into the NGOs, into wherever, into the United Nations, that will actively and aggressively participate in the eradication of white Western society. So that's the growth industry for the globalists. Now, as I look at this, I noticed another one recently, which sort of my jaw hit the ground. And this is one where it's a very, and I won't mention which country or which branch of the military this involves, but somebody was appointed to, a woman was appointed to be the executive director of strategic policy and communicating and distributing that policy. So now you'd think that there'd be some sort of It's a very senior role. It's quite well paid. There must have been thousands upon thousands of candidates that could have done this job. But for some reason, they landed on a white lesbian whose previous role was distributing transgender propaganda to 5-year-olds in the education system. And out of all the people they could have picked. So this person, of course, is suddenly that office that she's in is then transferred. She then hires other lesbian activists, and that office is transformed into nothing more than an office for distributing anti-straight white male propaganda. And her office has a direct line into the left-wing media, and information stories are leaked and all this sort of stuff. So it becomes this clamoring noise for reform and change, and lurid stories come out of terrible things happening, none of which have any evidence or proof, none of which can warrant an investigation, because there's no evidence to even kick off an investigation, let alone prove wrongdoing. So clearly that person has been inserted in there to just stir up a propaganda hornet's nest, which just coincidentally happens to be anti-male, anti-white, anti-Christian. Purely coincidence, I'm sure, but that's the and anti-heterosexual, of course, and that's what was that's how they're doing it. So when you see any of these, they've structured a system now where if there's 1 million straight white people, they insert just one black lesbian in there, just one. That's all it takes. Just one black lesbian is inserted in there in a choreographed, stage-managed event. Is one, and then the other 1 million straight white people must all tiptoe around this black person. Otherwise, they're racists, they're homophobes, they're this, they're that, they're the next thing, and they can be dragged into court for hate crimes or hate speech or anything like that. So they're able to, just by these devices, to ensure that the majority, the 99.999% majority, all have to tiptoe around that one minority person, that one minority person who's inserted in there, because their rights are equal to and greater than the other 1 million combined, which of course is a travesty of any sort of logical or rational thinking, but that's how they're doing, and it happens. Logical or rational thinking, but that's how they're doing, and it happens, or it's happening everywhere in all sorts of different ways. You know, there's a quote of 4 people in this particular government, Quango, and so a quadriplegic in a wheelchair is given the job as the departmental supervisor, even though they have no relevant qualifications. They're put in there because that's what the quota says, and that's claimed, well, that's fair. It's just. But to who? For who? Is it equitable for the person who's been given the job they can't possibly do? Is it equitable and fair to the people who could do the job with one who again can't possibly do the job, isn't qualified to do it, and has been put there just based on a quota? Is it fairness and equitable, and if he doesn't, they'll use hate speech and hate crime laws and so on against the guy, and vast financial resources are available for the activists to do this. Now, any court should say, hey, you're just a bunch of activists engaging in a game of entrapment. I'm going to throw it out. But no, the activist judges are found, activist district attorneys, and they think they're doing, or pretend that they think they're doing virtuous work, but they're just harassing a private citizen for no reason other than their own go to straight white Christians is what they're after. And again, it's the globalist playbook: straight white Christians. Let's get them. Let's crush them. Let's erode all their confidence. Let's exhaust them financially and so on. That's the playbook there. And it's just all around, and in every shape or size and every manifestation. It can be in the workplace. It can be in social clubs, it can be in sports clubs, it's definitely in government and in the public service and government quangos in major organisations that receive government protection, monopoly protection, cartel pricing protection, and so on. And it's just all over the place. But that's how they're doing it. It's inserting just one person in there and saying everyone else has to around them. I've sort of just my own personal experience as a in business. I've got harassing calls from government departments in the past saying, well, why don't you have more women in management positions, or why don't you have more black lesbians, or this or that, and no matter what your answer is, or no matter what they'll always go on to the next one. So, well, actually, we do have women in there. Oh, well, how many of them are black lesbians? Well, actually, we've got, how many are black lesbian single mothers with Down syndrome? Yeah, damn racist bigot. And so they just keep on going through the list until they find one that you don't box tick on, and then that's what you get to. Then you're given vague, veiled threats over the phone. Well, business, and then that activist will inform. And so we don't need to, or we need rather to understand just how widespread and how if you want to go and have a look at some of those Senate confirmation hearings in the United States, you'll be staggered at how overtly activist these lightweight, simple-minded people are, and how they're being put up to do. And they'd have to be simple-minded in order to pursue the objectives they're pursuing. This idea of eradicate everything that currently exists in terms of white society, and whatever, it's no other way to describe it. But it's a situation we're in currently. That's my take on things. You've been a Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.